By the right of the Council, by the will of the Force, welcome back into another episode of the Galaxy Famous Star Wars Podcast Day approved Jedi Talk Podcast. This might be my most favorite episode ever. Let's get the logistics out of the way. Follow us at Jedi Talk Podcast on Instagram, youtube.com/Jedi Talk. Happy Star Wars Podcast Day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jedi Talk, a Star Wars podcast. Real quick, the elevator pitch, if you've never ever listened to us before, we're not the first Jedi Talk Star Wars podcast. The very first Star Wars podcast ever debuted on February 7th, 1999. It is the 26th anniversary of Star Wars podcasts. Do you have one? You're certainly listening to one. And we're together celebrating. Huge shout out to Star Wars Pod Day on Instagram, Daniel, for putting all this together. It gives us the current Jedi Talk, which is crazy how all of this just kind of came about. Like, we never had any connection with the first Jedi Talk. They don't have any connection with us. And now here we are. Kind of back with it. And we have two incredibly special guests. Some of the original hosts and co-hosts of the OG Jedi Talk. So I'm just going to shut up. And let you get right into it. Enjoy the next hour of the chat that Brad and I had with these two guys, Lucien and Mark. This was so cool. Enjoy a really special episode. Happy Star Wars Podcast Day. Happy Star Wars Podcast Day, everybody. Gosh, we're talking so much before we officially started the show here, kicking off here. Tom here, Matamika here on the High Council with the current version of Jedi Talk, and you'll hear it and see why in a second. I'm here with 2/3 of our council tonight. Brad Hughes is here. Brad, how the hell are you tonight, man? Are you excited about tonight? Before I introduce who else is here with us,
I'm not kidding without exaggeration. This is my favorite show to do every year. It makes me so happy to talk to these guys. Finally getting to meet Mark and talking to him a little bit. I'm very excited. I just want to stop talking and introduce our guests.
Yeah. So this is the third year in a row that we've had the Godfather, one of the many Godfathers of Star Wars podcasting, the Podfather, Lucien Maier. Welcome him back to Jedi Talk from the original Jedi Talk. Lucien, how the heck are you tonight?
I'm great. It's good to be on, guys. I don't know if I like the nickname, but it's really good to be here.
Well, you come bearing a former co-host or with you tonight. So if you don't mind introducing who you brought along, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So I threatened last year that, if you're going to do this again, that I'm probably not going to have too much more to say. So I had to bring in one of my old co-hosts to bring along with me. So Cal Thanos, or Mark Henderson, who was an integral part of Jedi Talk and was on 80 plus shows, I believe. And then is multiple characters in Stormtrooper Bob. So it's just a huge part of the show. And then as we expanded into the station Radio Evolution, he was also on Gamers Tavern, which was another show that we produced at that time. And even at the darker end of the scale over at the Star Trek side, Mark was at my side helping me out, bringing the light side in. So that's who Mark is. So hey, Mark, stop letting me talk.
Well, I got to wait for a break because you know how you could get.
Dude, it's the same thing. The show lives on, man.
Yeah.
Well, Lucien, he was really our primary host, and he led a lot of the conversation. I actually came in late to the show, so it started out with Gene and Lucien, and they were hosting. And I'd recently moved to the area, and I was making some friends. A mutual friend introduced me to Gene. We immediately hit it off talking about Star Wars. And after a few months, he's like, hey, I've got this buddy and we do this talk show and it's really cool. And we've been thinking about doing this audio comedy. And I was like, audio comedy? That sounds amazing. I love doing voices. So at that point, we started the development of Stormtrooper Bob and what all of the characters would become. And it was actually another member by the name of Ian McCormick, good friend, but I haven't seen him in many moons. But he played the voice of Stormtrooper Angus. Eugene played the voice of Stormtrooper Bob, and I played pretty much everything else. Occasionally, one of the other guys would be one of the Imperial officers, but I always just loved playing with my voice since I was a little kid. I was raised in West Texas, but I don't have the accent because I trained it out.
Dude, I'm from the South. I was born in Alabama and grew up in North Carolina. I don't really think I have that much of an accent. Sometimes it'll slip out, but very rarely.
Oh yeah, I actually let it creep out a lot more now. But back in the day, I wanted to be on the radio. Like I wanted to be a DJ. I wanted to be out there, out in front of a microphone. And this was just an amazing opportunity for me to, have a crack at it. And I got to talk about something I loved. Star Wars is my earliest memory. The first thing I remember is the domed buildings on Tatooine. Now, I don't remember anything else, but I always remember those buildings. And I was born in 1978, which means that movie had been out for a year. So my parents, those mad people, took a newborn to a movie theater to go see Star Wars in 1978. And it was my obsession all growing up. I loved the story, the hero's journey, the boy becoming a man and finding his place in the world. And it was really something that gave me a lot of joy and comfort growing up. And we were just starved for Star Wars for so long. From the time I'd seen Return of the Jedi until basically when Heir to the Empire came out, there was just nothing of value. You would have some comic books here and there, but they were mostly garbage. But then Heir to the Empire came out, and I was just immediately sucked in, and it was so good. Such a good series.
That gets lost so much right now is that how that expanded universe was so damn important to the people that had Return of the Jedi and the holiday special, for fuck's sake. You know what I mean? Like, that's what we had. That's what our entire lore was. We had to work off all of that. And then
you had Return of the Jedi, the original trilogy, and Lumpy.
Yeah, exactly.
Technically, we had the Ewok Adventures as well.
Slightly better. That out.
That's not a good point. That's a negative column, man.
I know. Gotta call a spade. There's plenty of positive and negative we could talk about from then till now.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny to me because the entire Disney acquisition is so well phrased in that, because we got a good Mandalorian out of it, but everything else has kind of been crap. Just same as the holiday special. What the hell happened? No, I'm kidding. Right? I'm kidding. I like my parts of it. But no, it's just, it's interesting because, like I say, that expanded universe. And I wasn't a huge fan of the Timothy Zahn novels because they were more political. But once the Jedi Academy novels came out, Jaina Lives, basically I was totally hooked and really loved those. And for back then, reading was a viable alternative media. Now when you read, people look at you like you're from outer space. So it's a little different now, but like I say, back then that was a couple comic books, Dark Empire and things like that. But when those movies got announced in '99, I saw a promotion rift. I saw, there's going to be some action there, so let's put a talk show there. And that was the depth of my thinking. It was no genius there at all. You know what I mean? It's like,
start there. What did that process look like? So it's February, right? We celebrate because we've told the story before about how we came up with Brad came up with the Jedi Talk name, and then how you were the OG Jedi Talk, the first Star Wars podcast ever. So, but what was that process like to get set up? Like, because this is 1999, I'm 13 years old, 12, 13 years old at this moment.
I'm 10.
So it's like, what was that like? Yeah.
just make me feel bad. That's what you're doing. It's just making me want to cry. No, just
up and
kidding.
talk, old man.
So
We're nerds for this stuff.
Don't appreciate you being here. It's okay. No, yeah. So, God, it was a technical challenge. I was all about technical challenges back then. So, in 1995, I want to say maybe even a little earlier. I was at Salt Lake Community College, and I saw like the 250th node of the internet fire up in front of me. Because University of Utah had the first government contract layout from the internet, and from there they shot down to the local universities, and we were one of these computer labs where they were doing it in the back of our fucking programming class. And me and my buddy Sean walked back there and went, "What are you guys are doing?" And they explained it, and we're like, "Well, we're on Lower Lights BBS and blah blah blah." And like at that time, that BBS culture was like the cool networking thing, and they were like, "Oh, this is so much cooler." And the minute I saw it, it was like, "Oh, never mind." And so I went up to the teacher. I was like, "What about this internet thing?" "Well, we don't know anything about it." And then 2 weeks later, I had a job at Packard Bell as a C+ technician because I was chasing the internet. And then in Salt Lake, we had a heavy dial-up community. So I went through tons of different dial-up as tech support, web design, system engineer, tech support, web design, system engineer. It's all kind of the same thing when you get back into that period. It was just innovative people that could pull things off. And so that became my culture. And then I got married, and my wife wanted me to get a real job, so I went to DirecTV. and that lust for technology, because I was at DirecTV, which was a customer service job, and that lust for technology was what kind of drove me to say, well. And I went to my dad, who was a lifelong talk show listener, and so I listened to a ton of that shit in his car. And even met hosts and stuff like that, because he was an intelligent, or he's still an intelligent guy. And so he had kind of gotten into these shows and proved himself pretty proficient. And so I met these hosts and stuff. So I was kind of around that culture. And so it was just a natural for me, I think, to say, first I said to my dad, "I want a Star Wars talk show. Do you think we could go to K Talk?" Which is, our friend had a lot of stock in that radio station. And he's like, "No, there's no local market for Star Wars talk. What the hell are you talking? That's ridiculous." And I was like, "Well, okay." And so we argued it back and forth for like a month, and he was just basically steadfast, "No, that's a stupid idea." And he was right. It wouldn't have had any kind of market share here in the Salt Lake Valley for sure. And so then I came up with the idea, well, if I put it on the internet, then the market share gets a lot bigger. And that's when it kind of came out. And then I sat down with Gene, I think in one meeting, and said, "I think I could pull this off." And he's all like, "Well, when do you want to premiere it?" And I said, "February." And I think it was like November. And he's all like, "You're insane." And he's all like, "But if you can do it, I'll sit there and talk." Because he was basically, I was like, "Listen, all you have to do is walk in a room and sit in front of a microphone and talk about Star Wars." And I went to a Gene because he was like a manager there, and he was big into Star Wars ships and specifics. And he was much more like the technical, and Mark can attest to this, he was much more the technical kind of end to it. And I was much more the story. And then we went on the air, and it was a technical problem for me, which is just something I've always thrived in. And then we got the technical problem solved, which was getting the thing on the air. And then as we started to go along, it became maintenizing for me. So it was like, okay, we need to bring in another host. And that's where Mark came in, and he was kind of coming in to take over my voice in the show. It was very long planned that he would take over for me, although I stayed probably a lot longer than I was welcome. But you'd have to ask Mark about that.
Mark, your rebuttal.
We had our upsides and we had our downsides, you know. It's human relationships.
It
Of
was a
course.
relationship, and we were together for fucking 6 years in some kind of capacity, back and forth, different studios, different configurations of the show. So it was a relationship with everything that a relationship has.
Lucien was there for the
we can
lion's share
attest to
of it.
that. We can attest to that too. It is very much a relationship.
Yeah, it is.
It is
It's
a relationship, and Brad
it
doesn't
is.
put out that much.
Well,
Yeah, it's exactly,
you're not
and you
here.
can see one of the reasons I wanted to bring Mark on is because our dichotomy is very much like you guys' dichotomy, and
I can
and that
tell.
and that is I've always laughed at that every time I come on the show, is because everybody's giving each other shit. That's what Jedi Talk was. When I come down to what the magic of Jedi Talk was, is that all of us basically looked at each other and went, well, you're a complete idiot, and then moved on with our opinion. It was great.
The legacy lives on, baby.
It really does.
That I promise you, that's ask anybody who listens to us now. They're like, oh yeah, that's them. That's Jedi Talk.
We disagreed plenty, but we always just loved the hell out of Star Wars. That's for sure.
If you want to
That's
hear some
true.
disagreements, listen to last week's episode. Holy shit.
I did. And I have to say, okay, so coming from the old man's perspective on that conversation, there used to be a ride in Florida Disneyland called Alien Encounter.
My favorite of all time.
I remember that.
Oh my God.
My
This
favorite of
scared
all
the
time.
living piss. I
Oh,
went
yeah.
on my honeymoon on that ride, and it scared the piss out of me.
Oh,
And I was
dude.
like, I cannot wait to put my kids on this ride someday. I remember viscerally thinking that,
Oh my
and it was gone far before. But man, what happened to that ride? I mean, you're talking about the good.
It's an empty building now.
It's like,
It switched over to Stitch. You
one
know
of
that
the
George Lucas was involved in that ride, right?
No, I didn't realize that. But like
He
I say,
did,
I
yeah, he
only
was
saw it
big
on
deal.
my honeymoon, and I was like, this is amazing. So when
It
I
was
heard
such a
about
cool
you
thing.
guys talking about ride allocations and buildings and stuff like that, it was like, oh, this is really interesting. This is kind of stuff that Luke used to talk about all the time. You remember, Mark?
Oh, Lucas Land.
Yeah.
I remember. I think I still have the diagram somewhere.
Yeah, I have it in the archive. It's in that archive that I gave you a link to.
So were you a weekly show from the beginning? Everything was a week, was a couple hours. Did you know? I want to talk about Stormtrooper Bob eventually. I don't know if we need to carve that out specifically, but was that part of every single episode? You know, I'm just so curious of what that looked like.
So we tried to have an episode of Stormtrooper Bob ready every week.
Okay.
For the show. So the show was every Sunday for 3 hours. So we would usually spend about 5 or 6 hours over at Lucien's place, you know, hanging out, talking about the show, what we were going to discuss, what the topics were, what we should and shouldn't poke. And then Ian and I, before that day, usually the day before on Saturday, we would go over to either Lucien's or Gene's place, and we would record. And I mean, you should see the crap we used to do that. Oh my gosh. So it was a bunch of like Logitech headphones with the boom mic that we just like put around our necks. So we had the little boom mic sticking up, and the audio quality wasn't great. We were using Cool Edit Pro. And so Lucien would write the scripts and hand them to us. And then we would promptly change 95% of it. It was a great framework, but
Sure.
improvisation is a wonderful thing.
I wanted to point that out. Like it's absolutely true. They changed 95% of it, but the basic flow of what I was trying to get across, that was always adhered to. I think that's why it works. Just because I have no business writing comedy. That's for damn sure. So it definitely worked out much better. Although I will
Me neither, and I did it professionally for a while.
Right.
It's true.
I will say that we leaned into every stereotypical thing that we could possibly lean into. I mean, Angus was fat bastard. Let's take the shell off the nut there. I mean,
Forklift that character 100%. Lewis was an amalgamation of Bob and Doug McKenzie from Strange Brew. Francis was pretty much just your stereotypical gay guy. Twitch was
Stormtrooper.
Yeah. Um,
It was the 90s. You can get away with
he-
that.
Yep.
Dude, he was a fun character, and if you pay attention, he always had the right idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
They would never listen to him, but he was always right.
He
It
was
wasn't like we were
always-
shitting on him or anything.
He was the one truth sayer out of all of them. Like when they were blowing up the Death Star, he's the one that's like, "Hey guys, this is probably not the right." And he's always that guy in it. But yeah, because of his kind of fruity nature, he doesn't get listened to very much, and that's a bummer. Because but that was, like I say, you couldn't pull off Stormtrooper Bob now. I've said that multiple times.
So, speaking of Stormtrooper Bob, I have a question. Lucien shared something with me recently, and I noticed all of the Stormtrooper Bob episodes are in said file that he had shared with me. Would it be okay if Jedi Talk releases those in sequential order?
I apologize in advance for episodes 1 through 7.
So does Lucas. So does some people would say so does Lucasfilm.
Lucas,
Yeah, but they're more like
they would
7
never
through
acknowledge
9.
that. They would never acknowledge that. The only place that Lucasfilm would acknowledge Stormtrooper Bob is Germany.
We were huge in Germany. I mean, we could have Hasselhoffed.
We could have.
Good asshole off.
Just need
I
a
mean-
white Corvette to sing in front of.
With your permission, I think that would be so cool to hear. those
Sure, I
again.
mean, their horrible quality is my only
That's-
worry for you guys.
That's not a problem because I think
26
with the
years ago.
idea,
Yeah.
I think with the idea of what Star Wars Podcast Day is about, releasing something from the original Jedi Talk would be phenomenal.
Like,
You're more
I'd
than
be
welcome to
honored.
do it.
That's
I mean,
cool.
Yes.
go ahead and release. God, if they're going to release that, that means they're probably going to want to release that on this episode, which means that they're going to put episode 1 of Stormtrooper Bob on this mark.
Oh, how
I am.
appropriately named. A mistake to shake the stars.
I'm doing it. It's done. It's done.
Let's
Let's go.
go.
Let's go.
Let's go. Let's go, baby.
Yes.
Yeah, man. Hey, the main reason we built Stormtrooper Bob was because we wanted a way to have another break in the show. Because let's be honest, Jedi Talk was a 2-hour show, but there was usually about a 45-minute break in the middle. Like we'd go outside and we'd smoke, and we'd go back in, and we'd go back out and smoke and hang out, and yeah, it was a whole thing, right? I mean, like every Sunday for 6 or 7 hours we were in it because it was live. There wasn't any kind of flexibility on when we did it. It was every Sunday night, 7 to 9 p.m. we were on the air. And then, like I say, yeah, that break in the middle, which was supposed to be a 15-minute break. And actually, honestly, as we went on, it became more and more structured. Gino eventually took over the studio. It went out of my house and it went into Gene's house, and it became more of a solid thing when it did that, I think, and less of a party. Before
That sounds
it was
familiar for us, Tom.
Yes, it does.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah,
cool.
I used to do them for like 3 hours, and when Tom came out, he's like, "No, we're doing a 45-minute to an hour, and that's it. And I'm going
Yeah.
home. Fuck you."
I mean,
And he's right.
we just trimmed the fat. I mean, like now the shows are more dynamic. I mean,
Well, that's why Evan's not on tonight. We trimmed the fat.
oh,
Oh,
Shots fired.
Take that, Evan.
we love Evan. He loves us. He would
hey,
give us
we
the
can't
shot,
say
too.
nothing about Gene. He's not here.
And I mean, we were basically best friends for 6 years.
Yeah.
It was really quite awesome.
Yeah.
So
It was an
I feel
amazing
like
experience.
I feel like this would be like an amazing scripted show. Like Disney Plus should approach, maybe not Disney Plus, they just lost almost 1 million subscribers in 2025. But like
I was one of
somebody
them.
should
nice.
let's
nice.
bring down the empire. I really feel like this could be like a really cool scripted show. Like from just the stories you guys told us, like I can just see this as like a show. Like a proper, not reality show, but like a docuseries of this.
The only thing that Mark and I have ever talked about again creatively afterwards, because I do a ton of stuff creatively, but the only thing that I think that we've ever talked about creatively after that. Now, Mark has had an amazing career in backup software and system engineering and all sorts of stuff that we all got into together as well around the same time around Jedi Talk. I think Mark was delivering pizzas and then came to Totally Awesome Computers, and then we became a bench tech, and just a brilliant guy. But yeah, I think that as we've gone through these different shows and stuff, we haven't had that many creative intersections. The one time we talked about doing a musical about technicians. Do you remember that, Mark?
God, no, I don't. Jeez, that was a long time ago.
At Storagecraft, we had talked about maybe doing maybe I shouldn't have said that name, but whatever. But we had talked about, what would be funny is if we did a musical about how to make technicians. And then did that as kind of almost a technical manual. It was an interesting idea. I still think about it once in a while, to be honest. but anyway, apparently he doesn't.
Well, now I'm thinking about it.
That's good.
I'll have a rough draft of the first musical number to you next week.
So what were you guys talking about during those live episodes, those live airings? I mean, this is 1999 lead up to the Phantom Menace. This is episode 1, the prequels, the first Star Wars since 1983. Like, what were you talking about? And I am all ears because I'm so excited to just to hear. This is 26 years ago. Like, this is crazy.
I'm glad you asked this, dude, because this was my question. There had to be like some speculation going on.
Yeah.
Well, of course there was tons of speculation, but basically, I mean, our show was centered in content around the expanded universe books. That's what we had to talk about. That's what changed and shifted under our feet while we're working. The movies were a constant draw, but like this constant like thing in the future. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. Let's not talk about it. We really had that want to be the role of the people that were like, just let's see what happens. Let's see how good it is, and blah, 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 blah. And then, like I say, we always had that kind of positive spin for Lucasfilm. So we always kind of tried to turn it positive for that. But yeah, I would say, Mark, and we had all these authors from the expanded universe that were literally our friends that would come on and talk about the story. So, and we were truly adept at the story. All three of us had read the books and were pretty ravenous for all the new content. So, and there's a lot of people don't realize that that's like a couple hundred.
Over 100, well over 100 novels. Yeah. Because I don't think I read all of them, because I didn't read the Young Jedi stuff like Lucien and Gino did, but I read all of the mainstream novels all the way through the New Jedi Order. And that's when I stopped, was the New Jedi Order, because they kind of broke my heart there. With the death of Anakin Solo, who was one of the best characters in the expanded universe, in my opinion. One of my all-time favorites. And he was a product of Mike Stackpole, who was arguably the best author in the Star Wars universe. He wrote the X-Wing series, or at least helped guide the X-Wing series.
Disclaimer, Mikey is a great friend of ours, so it's hard for us to say. But when Mike, and another disclaimer though is that we didn't know Mike until after we'd read his stuff and then met him through interviews, and he became this great friend of ours in the show and stuff like that. I still hear from him once in a blue moon. He still comments on books that I've written and stuff like that. The latest book that I did, My Ugly Truth of the Road, he wrote me a nice email about, which is...
You got to write a book about this. This is such a... You have to. You have a very unique experience here.
You really do.
You created
that's like my
man.
entire life, man. That's not, and that's the thing that gets me scared, is I don't want to be seen as like claiming that I created podcasting and what the hell and blah blah.
You created Star Wars podcasting.
I mean, at the bare minimum, you created Star Wars podcast.
Okay,
bare minimum.
Even at the bare minimum of that, it's still not something I necessarily want to go around saying, "Oh, look at me, I did that." It doesn't matter.
I don't think anyone.
We'll do it for you.
I think you don't give me I want credit for this vibe, and I think that would come through, because there are people who like come on these things and talk about like them. and that has never been what you've done. And I think that would come through. I really, really do.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to approach any of that kind of stuff. That's
Well, in the meantime, we're doing this Jedi Talk episodes that
exactly.
I'm happy
That's
about
what I'm
that.
saying.
Yeah.
What number is this for you guys? You guys are getting up there.
This is in the 700s.
Shit, I have
700.
it's up there.
700?
Mhm.
Ooh.
Holy goddamn! Well, they got to produce so much more now. They got to do.
They've been
so
doing
much
it for a
more.
decade too.
That's
Yeah,
that's the
Think about
thing.
Yeah,
when
I
episode 7
started
came
this.
out.
Yeah.
That's
Holy shit, you're right.
that's the thing.
Fuck, that
It's
scares me.
and
Yeah,
Mark,
it hurts, doesn't it? Ha!
Mark,
It does. It makes me sad.
Mark said it just there. It's like, yes, we have to keep up, but it's like, I think Star Wars fans now, regardless of what you think of the product, it's like we're eating so well with content compared to what you guys were discussing, and what you had back then was the novels, was the expanded universe. And like, there's so much more now. There's novels on top of, there's video games, there's like prequel novels, there's comic series, there's Disney Plus series, there's movies. It's we have to understand that we're getting fed well with Star Wars content.
We
Even
kind
if it
of had
sucks for
video
us.
games. We had Force Command.
You had Shadows of the Empire and Shadows of the
No,
Empire and X-Wing
Shadows
and TIE
of the
Fighter.
Empire.
Was that happen?
Forces.
X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. I was big into X-Wing versus
X-Wing and
love
TIE
that
Fighter
game. I
were
thought that was good.
amazing.
Yeah.
And Dark Forces, the first person shooter for Star Wars, which I recently picked
Oh my
up
God.
the new version of it. So I
Okay.
loved it. I loved that game.
That's
and of
awesome.
course, its subsequent ones like Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy, and those were just phenomenal games, and also made for pretty amazing LAN parties.
Oh God. See, now he's tapping in because he just thought of what I just remembered too, which is the Juice and Jedi.
Yeah,
So
force pushing rockets back at Daryl.
Yeah, this is
That's sneaky
okay.
good.
So in the early days of LAN parties, I was known to host some of the legendary ones around Salt Lake. And because I also worked at the big computer stores and stuff, all these parties became like really legendary around Salt Lake. So there's two of them, the Duke and Puke, which was the original party with Duke. We played Duke Nukem and drank like crazy.
Dude,
Okay.
I'm down. Let's do it. Let's do a 2.0 version of this.
Duke. And then later on, because that one had become legend, and I started working at Totally Awesome Computers, and I worked every day with all these great young kids that were technicians and gamers and all of that. And they were like, oh, we got to do something else. We got to do something else. And so I came up with the Juice and Jedi. And we took Jedi Knight multiplayer, and I skinned everybody a skin. And I said, and we went to my buddy Daryl, and I said, okay, who do you want to be? And he says, I want to be a green hut with the yellow Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy smiley face on his chest. And I'm like, Daryl, you're going to be 4 times the size of every other character in the game. You're going to be such an easy target. He's all like, I want to do it. He spanked our butts all night long as this hut and just killed us all. It was nuts. But yeah, I mean, like I say, we go way back with the whole Juice and Jedi and the Duke and Puke, and those were legends, man.
I'd like to correct you there, Lucien.
Oh,
that was the only time I ever beat Daryl.
Oh, wow.
Because I spent weeks beforehand playing single player in the arena mode, learning the controls, learning how to play that game, and learning how I could cheese him, because he was a Quake master. This guy was just a monster in Quake and just about any first-person shooter I'd ever seen in my life. And he would wield a rocket launcher like a scalpel, as weird as that sounds.
Oh my God. At that stupid tube map in Quake where you get shot out of the tube and you go into the other tube, and Daryl could somehow hit you with the rocket in between the two tubes, man. What was that about? He was like on a different level with video games. It was just amazing, that kid.
But the great thing about
70
what was it, Jedi? The great thing about Jedi Outcast, though, is you could force push the rockets back at the person who shot them. So if you were paying attention, Daryl wasn't quite as effective as he normally was. And if you were a sneaky person like I was, you could force pull someone off of, a gantry, which of course, by tradition, has no railings. You do the force pull them towards you,
Tradition.
push them off. It was great. Fun game.
So that the Han
That
Solo
was
and
another.
the-
That brings up a funny thing, because that brings up another thing that we used to do topics on, like rules around Star Wars. Like you can't have a lightsaber fight without a pit next to you. Do you remember those?
Yep.
Like we'd
Ooh,
come
yeah.
up with crap like that all the time, or we'd had a whole show on the Force and how it's affected your life, and you know what I mean. This is like this weird Dr. Phil kind of stuff sometimes too. It was just it's a weird thing, but I think that the biggest thing that made Jedi Talk so unique was that the fact that we had all these crazy characters calling in. I mean, that was just the dynamite at the end of that phone was just too much fun.
Like, could you guys imagine having an open line for a call in? Like,
think we
just
No.
you pass out the number and you're like, hey, you want to talk? Give us a call. Let's do it.
We
Come on. It's gonna be a
we
party.
paid for them to call us.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, we got an 800 number, and I convinced the girl on the phone to let me have JD. What was it? JEDI TLK.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like 1888 Jedi TLK. Yeah, Jedi TLK. Yeah,
Jedi Talk had its own phone number.
yeah, we had a 1-800. It was a 1-800 because we didn't want a 18888, right? I think we paid like the extra to get the 1-800.
Yeah, because long
So you-
distance was still
Wow.
expensive back then.
Yeah,
That's
that show it
amazing.
cost us probably 60
Oh my
bucks
God.
a night to do.
Somebody call that. What is it now? This is Jenny
Actually-
with Jenny.
Hey, Holly, can I get your phone real quick?
Oh,
I've never
Brad's
called-
asking his
oh my
fiance.
God.
Gosh.
Holly,
Good
let me
to see
doing
borrow your
this.
phone
on the other line.
That's
doing
that's
this.
a
Hey, your
funny
phone right now,
experiment. I don't know
Dude,
if
if
I
this
endorse
forwards
this.
to your phone, I'm gonna laugh.
That'd be
We're gonna
insane.
see. We're gonna
I have
see.
not set that up. Hold on.
He's like, turn it off, go to voicemail.
we had regular callers. We had multiple people who would call us every single week, and sometimes multiple times throughout the course of a show if they liked what we were talking about and had something new to add.
Oh, that's cool.
And it was really it was super cool because we didn't have like the chats like we do now. Didn't have like a Discord or, you know, a Twitch chat which you could respond to and ban people or mute people or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, if somebody called on the line when we were live and they started to go rogue, we just hang up on them.
Sure.
They'd be done.
Yeah.
So
We
for
did.
those curious, the number would be 1-800-533-4855, and I am hitting call now.
That is definitely the number. Yeah.
This call may be recorded for quality assurance. We have a special promotion today for select callers. If you are over 50, please press 1 now.
We're a Medicaid line.
Is there a
Oh,
Medicaid line?
No.
no.
Now that shows our age.
I'm
That's
gonna hit 0 so I can get connected to somebody.
You're gonna get connected to
Oh my
somebody.
gosh.
You have to tell them that they're on a podcast, by the way.
yeah, like immediately before you record them.
I'm gonna bail this. I don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, bail.
Maybe
Yeah.
they'll be in
Yeah,
Florida. That'd be
no,
bad.
That's cool.
It's not worth it. It's not worth
Yeah.
it.
Here, Holly.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for doing
That's
that. That was funny.
crazy. Well, yeah, that's funny.
So-
I'm just thinking
Lucien,
my phone
I
number
mean-
changed to my number, like my 704 number, changed to that number and see if it'll work.
Go for it. So, what was Jedi Talks like? So, did you get, like, I hate to use the word peak because I don't want to ever, insinuate that you peaked somewhere and dipped, but like, did you have like a claim to fame or Lucien, I think you told us before that you may have run into some trouble with Lucasfilm too down the line. I don't know if you want to expand on that because we've had ourselves a little
That
bit
sounds
of,
familiar.
yeah.
Yeah, it's well, again, I've said it with you guys, you're dealing with Disney. That's a whole different animal
It
than
is.
we were dealing with. Lucasfilm was protective of their IP, but they weren't an insane mouse. But
I heard Nazis about it.
yeah, it's a little crazy with Disney, but it always has been, right? Like that company's always been staged to have that. Like when we had our buddy Luke at Disney, the rules that he was under, because he was trying so desperately to be a host on the Jungle Ride, and like literally we went out and did Disneyland with Luke. I don't think Mark was on that trip, but I met him and hung out with this fan of ours. And that was what's crazy, is that we had these people that were like Dubak is a character that we had that called in all the time and wound up being like one of the biggest benefactors to the show that we ever had.
Wow.
And this kid was like an annoying kid that would call in 6 or 7 times during the call, and sometimes I'd hang up blazingly in his face. But he didn't take offense to it. Back then it was just like, okay, well, I got to come up with another point so I can get back on the air. And so they took it as a game, and actually Dubak's dad is the one, and Dubak really are the ones that put in the effort that got us to Celebration 2, which you asked about the highlight. I would say probably, I would think that Celebration 2 was kind of our
Please talk about this
coup de grace. Well, I'll let Mark give some impressions on that one.
Well, I was actually just looking up some photos from said 2 that I still have.
Do not. No.
Do it.
No. Listen, man, I still have
you.
my Padawan braid there, so that's not okay. Is it the one of you looking at the blaster in the little action figure compartment? Oh, that's a great shot. Yeah, you should show that.
So they had this basically stand of a toy package, right? So you could go in and be your own little action figure, do whatever you wanted. And everyone's like posing and looking super cool. And I'm like, this sounds like fun. What does this do? Oh, that was the picture I got in there. I also got another one of Darth Vader choking me out. That was great.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
But it was so freaking dope.
It was so fun. It was so fun. We had one press pass between all of us that Lucien had. And day one, we get to Celebration 2. It's up in Indianapolis. It's right by the Colts Stadium. And there's a big convention center kind of attached. But the line is like wrapped all the way around. So Gene and I go and we get in line with Dubak, and we're waiting. And then we find out we're in the wrong line. This is the fan club line. You got to go to the extra long line over there, buddy. So then we go to the extra long line over there, and we're standing there for like 45 minutes, and we're slowly making our way forward. And all of a sudden, we see Lucien about 50 feet in front of us, and he's motioning us to get out of line. And we're like, we're invested. We're like, dude, we've been here for so long. You want us to give up our place? He's like, no, come on. And he did this on purpose. But then he pulled us out of line, walked us up to the front. We walked by like a quarter of a mile of people giving us the stink eye. We get to the front door. He flashes the badge. And he's like, they're with me. So then we all get in, and there's the 501st Stormtrooper Legion checking the badges. Those poor bastards. You wouldn't believe how many times they heard, you don't need to see my identification.
Oh my God.
When they were like, all right, let me see your badge. Turn your badge around. And like, no, I still need to see your badge. Show it to me. But we made it in. The merch there was incredible. I'd never been in a place where there was that much Star Wars merchandise, that much memorabilia. There was the toys from Kenner back from the late 70s and early 80s, all like still in the box, pristine, unreal. The costumes there were incredible. So many people were dressed up. And I'm not just talking about the 501st. There was a guy there who came in with a Wookiee costume on one day and a Wampa costume on the other. He had the stilts built into the suit, so he was actually full size. And I felt bad for the guy because he was so overheated. There was one point where he was actually off on the side with his head off, just like heaving, while people around were like, give him space, give him space. He needs to cool off. But there was great shows. There was one called Star Wars in 30 Minutes, which was this glorious.
I am aware of this, actually.
Almost improv. And we were so lucky because we got in there right at the beginning, and we got into one of the first shows. So there was like no line for it. And that thing was completely booked for the rest of the weekend. So we couldn't even see it again if we wanted to. They had
pause right there real quick. Star Wars in 30 Minutes had a guy from Collider named Mark Riley, who was like a contributor to Star Wars or their Jedi Council. He was on that show a lot, and he was a part of that. And I remember him talking about when Disney bought them, they stopped them from doing that presentation because they were like at every celebration for a while.
And it sucks because it was such a fun homage to the original product. It wasn't like they were changing anything. They were abbreviating it a whole lot, so they could just be rapid fire about it. And they had just random crap that they turned into props and put lights on it to like simulate X-wings. They had a guy
Just like to
who,
mention that I did not get to see that wonderful show. I was.
yeah, you can see he still hasn't stopped bitching about it.
Well, I'm just saying, you guys come out of that thing and they're like, you got to see this. This is so funny. This is the best thing here, blah, 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 blah. And it was like the next day I went into my press agent and he's like, I'm sorry, man. No way. There's no way I can get you in.
That's
and I was like, what? Really? It's that popular? And he's all like, yeah, if I put you in there, it's going to cause a mutiny. And he'd already pretty much caused a mutiny by letting me walk my entire staff by like 1.5 miles of freaking poor people in line by going, let's go forward, guys. And like Mark said, he was like, those guys, I mean, he mentioned it, that it's kind of like they were a little bit put off, but I mean, you guys were a lot more than a little bit put off. The whole way up there, you're asking me questions, and I'm deliberately very quiet, very stoic. Nope, just follow me. Just follow me. It's fine. Just follow me. It'll work out. It'll work out. And they didn't know what I knew, which is this, I had arranged for them to be able to get in, and so because the minute that I got in, that we were I had a press pass, and we were working with Wizards of the Coast. God, what was his name? A good guy at Wizards of the Coast. I met him from Monica over at Decipher Cards, was the one that like introduced me to him. And so basically this was when Wizards of the Coast first kind of took over, and so we were good friends with that. And so he brought me in on a press pass, and he's like, I can't get you a press pass for the whole staff. And I walked in and I'm like, well, this is great, but these guys are back quite a ways in line. And I had seen them get into line a lot earlier and then apparently they got kicked back further or something like that. But anyway, so I go looking for my guys, and at first they're not where I left them. So I was like, what the heck? But I kept looking back. I figured something happened, and there they were. And so yeah, I pulled them up and I played the little prank on them by not telling them what the hell was going on. But we got in, and they got to see the 30-minute Star Wars show. Luckily, that was cool. They got to see the little R2 show too. I didn't get to see that one either. I did get to talk to the Wampa guy though, and I got to talk to Rick McCallum on that trip, and I got to do a lot of things there that a lot of people didn't do. I was also really drunk a lot of the time too.
So you must be the Brad.
It was Dubak's dad kept buying me. Dubak's dad, who had financed the trip, kept buying me beer the whole damn time. He fed me the whole time. It really was.
Damn, that's all right.
But yeah, I like I say, there was other really awesome moments throughout the time. One of my favorite times at Jedi Talk is when Stormtrooper Bob forcefully took over the studio. Do you remember that, Mark?
Vaguely. I don't know if we still have that archive somewhere.
We do not. It is lost in the echoes of history. That was one of the reasons, is because we had set up a temporary studio for that show, because you didn't really actually break into my house. so we play. I was out of town doing an adult show somewhere else, and making money, man. And so I was out of town for the show, so we couldn't do the show. So the brainchild came to, well, we'll just have Stormtrooper Bob and his squad take over the studio and do the show. And that's what they did. And I'd call in every 5 minutes going, what are you doing in my studio? Get out of there and stuff. And it was, I was sitting in North Carolina with my friend, and we were dying laughing at it. So that was one of my favorite moments in it, for sure.
Are those
wrong number 8?
Do you live in North Carolina?
No.
Okay.
We live in Utah. I had a friend that moved out to North Carolina, happened to have an investor there that put up some money so that we could build an adult talk show out there, and that did pretty well actually, and made some decent money for that investor. And then and it got me some good trips and some fun stuff when I was young in my marriage, so it was a good thing back then.
Yes. Are those live recordings, or are those live feeds recorded anywhere?
The archive that I sent you has the shows, and
Okay.
those are live shows. There is the Celebration 2 live feeds are in there. I think all of those are in there. Now that's where you can kind of hear what we're saying, and well, it's just a bunch of excited kids, right? At a giant conference that we've never seen the size of this. I mean, everywhere you walked at Celebration 2, it was like Star Wars mania. It was so great. There was Darth Maul came to our room with 2 Princess Leias in bikinis. It was, yeah. I mean, you don't get much better than that, right? It's like, what do you do? How do you top that?
I don't know if you do. Yeah, that's wild. Like the second celebration. Like Evan, our other co-host, is going to Tokyo this year to this year's celebration. Brad was just at the one in Anaheim, and then Brad's been to the one in Chicago and one in Orlando here too, right, Brad? Am I wrong?
I mean, we were at one too.
Oh, were you really?
Met,
Oh, wow.
I met Ray.
Yeah,
Park
sorry,
at
I was talking. I'm mute on. Yeah, I did Orlando, Chicago, and Anaheim, 3 back-to-back. I did a panel at Chicago.
Very cool.
And is the one in Orlando, 2017. The Jedi
Brad's cutting out a bit for those and listening on there.
So what you guys hear? Sorry, I'm out on my patio here.
No, I know you did the panel at Anaheim and the panel at Chicago or Orlando.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was just Anaheim.
Okay.
We did the Force.net dinner. That was our claim to fame there. Remember they sponsored that, and you had to go get Admiral Ahmadi a beer, and then he took off without it, and you got all pissed off.
Yeah, I am still pissed off about that.
I want to hear about this beef.
Speak your piece. Speak your piece, Cal.
We're at this dinner, and we've got our table set up, and we've got microphones. We've got one mic facing out, so people can come up and they can talk and they can be on air. And we found the actor who played Admiral Mahdi. His name eludes me at the moment. And I was raised in the South, so I am very polite, and this is a much older gentleman. So I refer to him as sir as I'm talking to him. And he goes, "Excuse me. I have a rule. If anyone ever calls me sir, they owe me a beer. And I will not talk to you again until I get my beer." And I was like, okay, this is fine. So I run over to the bar. It's kind of a long line at the bar. It takes me like 10 minutes to get through it. Get back with the beer. That guy's freaking gone. He's in the mall. I have no idea where he is. And I'm just like, what the? I lost the opportunity to talk to him because I called him sir, and he sent me to go on a beer run that he didn't even stick around for.
Yeah. But let's be honest, I drank the beer, and then we all drank a beer with Chewbacca. So, I mean, come on. Like
yes, the Chewbacca interview was cool.
The Chewbacca interview was... Yeah,
no,
Peter Mayhew.
Dude. No, that wasn't Peter Mayhew. I've got a picture somewhere of him with his head off. Are you talking about the guy who was there in costume?
No, at the Force dinner. Peter Mayhew was at the Force dinner. Didn't you sit down and talk with us? We had that beer. Maybe it was a different beer, but Peter Mayhew came to our table.
Seb 2.
Seb 2. Peter Mayhew came to our dinner at the Force table, and he talked into that same microphone Mahdi was in.
I was not there for that.
You were in line.
I did not know that happened. And now I know, and now I'm pissed.
Oh my God,
sit over there.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I know that we were looking for
Peter
you. Even
Mayhew.
He was.
Oh man,
you were there in spirit. Oh my God, dude! I didn't know that. I didn't. Yeah, he definitely came to our table.
I'm playing the Curb Your Enthusiasm
he definitely
music right
came to our table. It was Mahdi, and then a couple other weird people that we weren't really caring about. And then Mayhew came up and sat with us for a couple seconds and then took off. I mean, it was Mayhew. So,
wow.
yeah.
Wow. That's my elephant
Wow.
revelation out here.
Oh no!
Is what it is. Is
Oh
what
my
it is.
God! I'm
Can't
really
change
sorry,
it
man.
now.
Hey, man.
See,
You
now I'm just
were
going to give you more shit about it.
well. I mean, it works out. It's whatever it is. But
So
we
as
all
for-
had, dude. How many opportunities did we have because of that stupid show that we would have never? I talked to Rick McCallum. I've talked to Ray Park when we were at Star Wars Celebration 1, because we did go to the original, me and Jean and my ex-wife, and I was standing inside the little vent area of the tent because it was raining so bad that weekend in Denver, and they were not prepared. And then I got kind of bumped out of the way, and, oh, sorry, mate. And I turned around and there's Darth Maul standing there. And it was like, holy crap, dude. Oh, I'm such a fan and I can't wait for this movie and blah, blah. Because I think it was even no, it was during. But anyway, yeah, that's why I got that. That's why that my ex-wife wound up getting me the Darth Maul Celebration 1 jacket.
Oh,
Remember,
wow.
I had that. Kylo
Oh,
still
yeah.
wears that damn thing. It's nuts. So,
Does he?
but yeah, so but yeah, that was I mean, God, we had so many different opportunities and stuff that can't really get mad at the ones we missed. We were real close to meeting Lucas a couple times. We were real close to being in movies a couple times, and
Whoa.
just, I mean, there was definite evidence that Lucas Arts listened to us religiously, because when
Wow,
Force
these
Commander
threads
was
just
coming
keep
out,
following, dude.
yeah, when Force Commander came out, though, a ton of our suggestions were tried to be applied. You could see them every time they put out a patch or something. You could see everything that we were trying to get across about how the game was, because that game was supposed to be so great and it was so grady when it came across. And we were one of the few groups that sit there and played it still. And as it came through patches, you could see our input really go into that game. So it wasn't very hard stretch that once I started talking to some of the guys at LucasArts, that there was like some consensus that there was definitely a mandate to listen to Jedi Talk, because we were their
That
audience.
mandate still exists, man. I'm telling you, there was me and Evan talked about a year before this comic book came out about they should do a story where they're talking about Ben Solo training with Luke, and I even had the character's name Ty Verasi, and I was like, I had this whole character like completely nailed down. A year later, the comic book comes out, and this character is named Ty in the comic book. Like, there's been so many of these little like weird things where you're like, that's too specific for you not to have like listened to the show. And we know they listen because they get mad at us. So
That's the thing is that like all you have to do is see if they're listening, is just say something to piss them off. I mean, we did that on Jedi Talk all the time. It was a great way to drive up our numbers, because somebody would call and say, you can't do that, blah, blah, blah. And then we'd mention it again on the air, and it would just cause more people to want to listen, because they're getting in trouble because they're pissing off Lucasfilm. So,
well, do you guys
the
remember
parallels to old Jedi Talk and new Jedi Talk are just insane to me. I love it so much.
Time is cyclical.
Truly.
But another thing about the LucasArts thing is, so we did not have a lot of nice things to say about Force Commander because it was a hinky, difficult game to play. So one of the things that we said quite frequently was, man, it would be so great if they just took a working RTS and just plugged Star Wars into it. And shortly thereafter, a game, I'm struggling to remember the name, but it was basically the Age of Empires engine that they plopped the Star Wars sprites onto. And that was actually one of the most popular RTS games for many, many years in the multiplayer circles.
Yeah. KOTOR was big too. That was kind of
KOTOR was great.
If you look at the way our suggestions laid out, like Lucasfilm, after we kind of went away, there was multiple iterations of these games that we had kind of said, well, it's probably these are the selected formulas. So it was interesting to see definitely how that all played out.
That's amazing, man. This has been so incredible just to sit back and and kind of this is Brad said it. This has been my favorite episode by far.
Yeah.
I've done in so long.
Same.
This has been amazing, and I don't want you guys to be shy or strangers to the show. If we can make this at least an annual thing, please, I'd love to do that. But one of the last things I want to ask you is we're kind of wrapping up today is like, what's your relationship with Star Wars today?
It's a lot different than it was. That's for sure for me.
Sure.
So the original trilogy will always have a very special place in my heart, as well as the vast majority of the expanded universe novels. Not all of them, some of them were crap, but the vast majority were very good.
Kathy.
And no, I know.
Kathy.
I mean, get back to good freaking storytelling, character development. Tell a story that is central to humanity, a story that each and every person that walks this planet can relate to and can understand. If you want to do fan fiction, leave it on your blog. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it. I don't care. Tell me a story that is core to humanity. That's what Star Wars was, and that's what it should be again. Now, if we start telling the stories of how we become better, how we overcome difficulties, and how we grow through adversity, those are the stories that people want, because we all want something to aspire to, and you can't aspire to somebody who's magically good at everything.
Mark is speaking to a point that I would say too is such a good point with today's media is we've spent 30 years rehashing everything over and over and over again. And there's only so many ways you can do Spider-Man, and I love Spider-Man, and I love Star Wars, and I love all the things that made my childhood that magical. But unfortunately, I feel like we've had a bit of a stopgap in the way that creativity has flowed through this system. And so now we have a whole generation of fandom that is kind of dog-eared to the generation before them, because there isn't a whole lot of new stuff that has kind of come in. There's some, and like I say, I mean, there's more stuff out there than people would believe, but at the same time, we kind of get hooked into these ideas of what Star Wars needs to be. And so when you get hooked into what it needs to be, then it doesn't have the room to expand and be what it wants to be. And it's a story, it's a universe. It needs to breathe. It needs to come up with its own ideas and its own way to tell stories. And that will evolve naturally. And anytime you get a company that jumps in and tries to make a profit layer on there, that's going to cause problems with that creation process.
And when you try to appeal to absolutely every subset of humanity, you'll end up appealing to none.
Zero. Yep.
Right.
1,000% correct, man.
Could not
That's what
agree
it is.
more with that. Could not
That's-
agree more with that.
Gentlemen, you nailed it. You knocked it out of the park. I can't stress enough how awesome this past, I don't know, hour and a half has been, however long we've been talking, guys. This is so cool.
I love it so much, man. This has been such a fun time.
Thank you so much for the groundwork that you guys laid, even if it's unbeknownst to you, even to allow Brad and I and Evan and I and all of our other Star Wars friends who are celebrating podcast day to do this kind of stuff, just to talk, right? This is so cool. Thank you for that. And thank you for joining us, the idiots who continue the idiot legacy of Jedi Talk.
My favorite customers are always the dumb ones.
Yeah, there you go.
We should call this episode the Unintended Legacy of Jedi Talk.
I like it.
I like to say it's been, I've just had such an amazing experience when I look back on my life and all the different things I've gotten to do. I've also been a biker. I'm an author. I'm now a video game designer. I get to do all these amazing things, and it's just been a very cool ride to play on the internet, as in the way that I got to play on the internet. And I just, man, Jedi Talk was just I wanted to talk about Star Wars a lot with my friends, and that's all it was, really.
Well, I can assure you that exact dream lives on today in 2025.
It does.
That I don't know that I endorse it anymore.
And that is
Too
a fair
late.
thing to say.
Too late.
Especially when it's us three dipshits.
Yeah. Thanks again, guys, and happy Star Wars Podcast Day. Enjoy the first episode of Stormtrooper Bob.
Hi, this is Darion Blade from www.jeditalk.com. Be sure to join us for our show every Sunday night live, where you can listen to the latest Stormtrooper Bob. Join us for our trivia contest. Listen to live interviews with authors like Michael Stackpole or Kevin J. Anderson. Also, a full 2 hours of Star Wars talk every week. So remember, dark side or light, join us Sunday night.
The Adventures of Stormtrooper Bob, Episode 1, A Mistake to Shake the Stars. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, the Empire was in dire straits. Civil war had spread across the galaxy like a brush fire. The rebellion had been gaining support throughout the galaxy, using new techniques in warfare like teaching their soldiers to aim before shooting and teaching their pilots to fly had taken a tremendous toll on Imperial forces. In an effort to turn the tide of war, the Emperor started recruiting even worse troops to use as cannon fodder. This was to be his undoing. While on the planet of Bamania 7, Bob Muldoon was going through his life in the same old way as spaceport security. Little did he know that that was about to change.
Hi, nephew. Thanks for coming to my office.
No problem, Uncle. What can I do for you?
We have reports that rebels are going to bomb the spaceport.
Now, why would they do that? There's nothing important here.
Well, the Empire's taken heavy losses with their convoys, so they're having them rerouted here in an effort to resupply their star fleets.
Well, I'll keep an eye out for them. By the way, what do these rebels look like?
Oh, they'll be the ones wearing the gray caps.
Well, they should be easy to spot then.
Bob, lean over here for a sec. Nephew, you booby. They'll be dressed as tourists. Now get to your post. Honestly, I hope them rebels get another guard.
Here we are. Let's set the timer.
Well, I hope you enjoy your stay. Well, welcome to Bamania 7, gentlemen. You have anything to declare?
No, we're just tourists.
Any fruits or vegetables?
No.
You ain't rebels, is you?
No, we're from Coruscant.
Oh, okay. Hey, you hear that?
Hear what?
You know that noise, kind of like a tick-tock noise?
I don't hear a thing. You?
No, nothing.
Well, y'all have a good stay now.
Bob at the security office, please. Bob at the security office.
Take a seat, nephew.
Sure, Uncle.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Bob. Spaceport security ain't your thing.
What do you mean, Uncle?
Well, I mean, you's too trusting. Like that time your cousin Maxine convinced you to eat Nerf droppings because she said it'd make you stronger.
There ain't no proof it didn't, Uncle.
The other thing is how long you've been here. 3, maybe 4 years. I think it might be time for you to move on.
But I ain't got no other place to go, Uncle.
Bob, we can find you another job.
Well, okay. Can I go now?
Sure, Bob. I'll give you a call tomorrow. Maybe I made a mistake. Maybe not.
Can't believe that I got fired by Uncle Jethro. Can't wait to see what the next job is. Probably wind up transporting beak birds. I hate beak birds. They stink. They make Cousin Manny smell good. Hey, what's that sign? Stormtrooper Corps. Join the fun and make some mud. Well, I think I'll go take a look.
Welcome, young man. What brings you here?
That sign outside. What exactly do you do here?
Well, we look for intelligent young men such as yourself to help protect the galaxy from those who would destroy it.
Wow, that sounds important.
Yes, it is. Would you like to join? Oh, I do apologize. I haven't introduced myself. My name is Lieutenant Regor. And yours is?
Bob, sir. Bob Muldean.
Well, Mr. Muldean, are you interested in becoming a stormtrooper?
Sure. What do I need to do? And by the way, call me Bob.
Just follow me and we'll get started. Well, now that the paperwork is finished, we can start the physical. I leave it in your hands, Doctor.
Welcome, Bob. Take a seat. What is that smell?
Sorry, Doc. It just snuck out.
It's okay, Bob. That's interesting.
What, Doc?
Well, Bob, according to my blood test, your cholesterol is 300 points over the limit.
I always was an overachiever, Doc.
Well, I'm finished, Bob. Wait here, I'm going to talk to Lieutenant Rigor.
Sure, Doc.
Lieutenant Rigor, I have the fitness report for Bob.
And what were the results?
He should be dead.
Aren't you exaggerating a little?
He's 40 pounds overweight. Can't run 30 seconds without vomiting, which, by the way, he finds hilarious. And he thinks flatulence is a form of natural defense, which for him, I think is correct.
You think that's bad? On his test for the entrance, he thought nerf droppings increased his physical prowess.
Then why did you bring him to me?
Business is slow and we need to meet the quota.
Yeah, but him?
If we don't meet the quota, we go to the front line. Do you want to practice battlefield medicine, Doctor?
Good point. Congratulations, Bob. You passed the medical exam.
Report to Docking Bay 48 at 6:30 tomorrow, and again, congratulations, Recruit Bob.
Excuse me, you the officer in charge of the new recruits?
Yes, I am Lieutenant Regor. How can I help you?
Well, I'd like to talk to you about a new recruit, Bob Muldean. I don't think Bob has what it takes to be a stormtrooper. He ain't exactly the brightest of folks.
Don't worry, we carefully screen all the applicants. Your nephew has passed all the requirements.
I mean, are you sure you want someone like Bob protecting the Empire?
No need to worry, we have everything under control.
I feel safer already.
Bob Muldean reporting for duty.
That's fine, Muldean. Get in line with the other new recruits.
Now, Bob, this is your first time away from home, so I want you to be careful. The rest of the galaxy ain't like Bamania 7.
Don't worry, Uncle Jethro. The Empire is safe with me.
I'd better make sure my insurance premiums are paid. Well, good luck, nephew.
Okay, everyone, on the shuttle by twos. Will the Empire be saved, and Bob actually make it as a stormtrooper? Tune in next week for Episode 2, The Cardia Affair, the continuing adventures of Stormtrooper Bob!
This episode of Stormtrooper Bob has been brought to you by Nerf Droppings. It does a buddy good.
Stormtrooper Bob, A Mistake to Shake the Stars has been brought to you by www.jeditalk.com. The voice of Bob Muldean was brought to you by Eugene Cash. The voice of narrator, Rebel 1, and Lieutenant Regor was brought to you by Ian McCormick. Rebel 2, Uncle Jethro, and Doc were played by Mark Henderson. We hope to see you again for episode 2 of Stormtrooper Bob. Thank you.